running in, the hand is coming up, and the gunshot with Huber goes off. And the natural reaction is the flinch. He covers up. And then he pulls his hands up. And as he's standing with his hands up, look,
anyway,
he's not gripping the gun anymore in a pistol grip. Hands apart, hands up. And as he comes in to finish the job, the hand is on the gun going for Mr. Rittenhouse. And he says it's an involuntary movement.
That's all right.
The shot comes before it gets directly to his head. But the motion is coming, the shot, and it continues on with that momentum. Enough momentum to go through the bullet and point directly at Kyle's head. Does Kyle fire again? No, he doesn't. Actions likely to cause death or great bodily harm. And he is coming in with a loaded Glock. And we asked Mr. Gage Groskwitz about it. He wouldn't even admit that there was one in the chamber. That's why we had to put on the officer to talk about the unfired shell casing.
Nice.
Lakowski talked about clearing the weapon and a live round coming out. Because Groskwitz won't say anything that puts him in a bad light. Groskwitz, the person who has 10 million reasons to lie. And we all know he did lie.
Nice.
Because he never gave a new interview after giving his statement saying he dropped his gun going down the street. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the charges. Those are a synopsis of the charges. As I stated, the burden is on the state, and they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client did not have the right to self-defense. Kyle, as he sits here, is presumed innocent of all charges. If there is any reasonable hypothesis to reconcile with Kyle's innocence, that is what you are to choose. Remember, when looking at the burden of proof, they have it. Think about some of the things, the shoddy investigation, the rush to judgment from the Kenosha District Attorney's Office, the Zeminskis not being called as witnesses. They have the burden of proof. We don't. They
slowing down a bit.
Yeah, he's losing it.
Want it to be that Kyle was out there doing
I only wrote 15 minutes
improper.
of my closing
Kyle
argument.
was a 17-year-old kid out there trying to help this community. He was asked to provide help in protecting property at the car sources. It started, and he did it. He did provide aid, and he was asking if anybody needed aid. Whether somebody chooses to accept that aid, that's on them. But Mr. Binger wants to poo-poo his sincere belief that he's helping people because he borrowed bandages from Dominic Black, and I think he might have borrowed something from Lakowski also. But in the picture, when the Kandiri poses with all the people who are going to protect us.
No.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I switched to PBS. I mean, this is the most stable stream that I know.
There's Kyle's big orange gator box. He's got his pack on, filled with things, and he's willing to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle was not an active shooter. That is a buzzword that the state wants to lash onto because it excuses the actions of that mob on the 25th of 2020. Whenever Kyle was there, he reacted to people attacking him. There's numerous times, and you'll see him on the video, he does not shoot. He runs 2 blocks from 63rd to 61st scene 2 without firing his weapon. Individual hits him in the back of the head. He does not turn around to address that threat.
Fantastic.
Huber takes a swing at him with the skateboard like that. Kyle blocks, and the skateboard's knocked out of his hand. He doesn't turn around and shoot him. He keeps running and falls from the 2 hits.
It's a great fact.
He's run that far, and yet somehow he just fell over on his own. As soon as he's on the ground, they're there attacking him. And you see the people. The law of self-defense, you've seen it, you've heard it. Now I'm going to go through the witnesses. Oh,
There was just a self-defense slide there.
Dominic
For
Black,
2 seconds.
first witness, charged by Mr. Binger for providing the gun to my client. 2 counts, looking at up to 6 years in prison. His case has been adjourned so that he can help the state. I don't think he helped the state that much. I think he was a pretty truthful witness, all in all.
This is good.
He told them about Kyle
Let's
there
go
to
through
help
each
people.
one and talk about how they helped
They
the
had
defense.
permission from the Kandiris,
Nice.
that he saw Kyle help the woman with the foot, help the person with the hand. Mr. Binger wants to just say, oh, that doesn't matter. If it wasn't Kyle, it would have been somebody else. The point is, he was there and he did it. There was no pointing by Kyle of any laser sight. There was no ability for Kyle or him to point laser sights at anyone because their guns didn't have the type of optics that did that. He said Kyle was there to help. The only person helping was Kyle. And he can say what he wants about whether or not he let Kyle take the gun or not take the gun. He never told him not to. He went to the location with him. They bought straps at Jelensky's together. He's trying to cover his butt a little bit. The
Yep.
guns were there and they took them.
Call out his
They
criminal
took the guns,
prosecution.
as he said, to deter people attacking them. He saw Kyle at the end sweating, was in shock, and said that he shot someone. He had to do it. That is Dominic Black. Corey
gonna recap
Washington
Every witness. This is interesting.
saw the rioters breaking up concrete at
strategy.
the church parking lot.
Decimating the prosecution.
Described Rosenbaum as erratic. Stated the crowd was suspicious. I don't know what that means. One of the things that I thought was strange was they were the night before they were burning garbage trucks, but they only burnt the old ones. I think that tells you something about his point of view, that there's a certain amount of property damage that is justified and okay. Kenosha was using those garbage trucks that the rioters lit on fire, and nothing regarding property destruction was going to do anything to help Jacob Blake. We also learned that Kyle Rittenhouse smokes cigarettes and that he has an
Whoa.
affinity for the Dinosaur Museum. Detective Howard,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen,
That's a little
Yeah,
random.
he's
Detective
side
Howard's
journey.
testimony
He's a bad man.
and Detective Antaramian's testimony
Bad face.
is the stuff of what reasonable doubt is made of.
Ah,
Two
nice.
detectives.
Good way to put it.
Both lead officers on this case. They've sat through every minute of this trial, and their opinions of the actions of Mr. Rosenbaum from testimony, videos, couldn't be more diametrically
We can't
opposed.
get 30 minutes of this.
Detective Howard, on
Mhm.
cross-examination,
I don't think.
knew that the guy was hiding in the car and jumped out from behind the car and began chasing Kyle Rittenhouse.
Good.
Oh boy, that's not good for the state's case. So, a little chit chat between Mr. Howard and Mr. Antaramian and the prosecutors after, and all of a sudden we've come up with the new theory. And you heard the new theory that he raised the gun, and that's what's on the video. Could I have the firearm, please?
Oh, let's see if
Oh, he knows how to use it.
Go
You
time.
know, Richards knows how to use it.
Oh, I'm hoping.
could I
I'm
have
hoping
the
that if he
firearm,
didn't, he's had
please?
somebody
That's,
walk him through it.
I know how to shoot a pedophile.
He told me he checked.
Is he gonna check it?
Check
Check
That's
it?
the Alec
Check it?
We're
Baldwin
avoiding a
claim.
Baldwin right now.
Pointing
Have
at
him
the
check it
ground.
again. Have him check it again. We take guns very seriously. He should have actually said, "I can check it, Your Honor," and pulled the charging rod, pulled the check the magazine, check the breech. Now I'm gonna Alec Baldwin the Binger right now.
Oh, no.
Is firing the gun when he's seen holding the gun throughout the events of the 25th. Shouldering the gun, and I'm not going to bring it all the way up to my shoulder, to the right shoulder, which would be a stance like this. The reason I objected in his closing
There you go.
argument
Oh, good.
is because
Recall is important.
that's not the way he was standing. If he's standing like this is right-handed, pointing the gun this way, up at the ready, his back would be to the drone footage. In the drone footage, you see the arm. It would be somebody having to hold the gun left-handed. This is a right-handed firearm. If this gun is brought up to his face,
Right-handed
and
firearm.
it is
Yeah, I
pulled
guess.
back,
Yep.
The ejection.
Yeah, he'd be catching brass if he fired it.
the shell casing hot, and the fire that ejects it is going to be going right into Kyle's face. The photograph I'll talk about later. You don't see the straps on his shirt. It didn't happen the way he said. It doesn't happen the way in the photograph. I'm going to need this again.
I'm gonna need.
I'm
this
going to
again.
use this for the rest of closing argument, is what he should have said. Any of you think my client is guilty?
Oh, no.
He's been he's really been rock solid. He's been
It's
amazing.
so far.
Burden of proof, once again. The telephones, the searching of telephones with search warrants, the subpoenaing of records. I have no problem with that. It's good police work. But when you pick and choose and you make favorites, it's not. My client testified, and I'll say it this way, the detective testified that my client's phone was sent to the FBI. It was unsearchable because of the operating system. The FBI and the federal government had not cracked it yet. We found out about that. We had nothing to hide. Here's the numbers. Search the phone as long as we're given a simultaneous copy. So we have what you have. We can have our experts look at it. They can have their experts look at it. So we know that there isn't anything added or deleted. We did that. We gave that to the state. If we had something to hide, they never would have gotten in that phone.
It's important for
They
that
took the
Midwestern
phone.
jury.
You made a copy. They searched it. Lo and behold, nothing of an incriminating nature in it. Nothing militia, white supremacist, any of that. Gage Groskowitz, different story. They had a valid search warrant for it. The only search warrant that these guys have never not executed when it's sitting right in front of them. Not just that, but Mr. Groskowitz could have consented to them going in the phone. If he has nothing to hide, why not? Why not let them look in the phone? And let's take common sense and judgment one step further.
I agree with Groskowitz, but Richards gets to hammer
Police
on
officers get
No,
search
absolutely.
warrants.
I do get it. I do.
They
get it.
execute the search warrant.
Showing the disparity of credibility
Sometimes
between the state
somebody
and the feds.
feels as though their rights have been violated, and it gets litigated in a court of law. If it was illegal, the information in that search warrant never comes out in court. If it's legal, after a judge has said there were no rights violated, it comes in evidence. What was Mr. Groskowitz afraid of? Why wouldn't the state execute the search warrant, let Mr. Groskowitz and his attorney object, file a motion, and say, you can't go in my phone? Let the judge decide, not the person who's prosecuting and protecting Mr. Groskowitz. Come on,
Nice.
people.
And I might add, in the meantime, they've
on.
seized James O'Keefe's cell phone. They go to a
Mr.
journalist and
Groskowitz
extract data,
has
but
10
not a
million
criminal.
reasons for not wanting somebody to go in his phone.
Come on, people. Dying.
The timing with the detectives and some of their actions, I think, are very important. They get down to Antioch at about 3:30 in the morning the 26th, less than 4 hours after this happens. By 6 o'clock, 6:30, given the benefit of the doubt, Kyle Rittenhouse is under arrest for first-degree murder. There's not been any autopsy done. There haven't been any witness statements taken. They've got 2 or 3 videos. The bullets, I should say it this way, all of the bullets have not even been picked up from car source at this point. But they're willing to make a decision. And were they under pressure? I'm sure they were. They're afraid that there's going to be another night of looting, destruction in Kenosha because of this happening and the way the word got out. He traveled across state lines. He was here. He brought his AR with him. The AR was here. He was a white supremacist looking for trouble. Nothing. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, when we picked you guys as jurors, we asked you if you could decide based upon the evidence that happens in the courtroom. Not what you'd heard before, not all of the lies and untruths that have been put out in the media. I heard one guy say, my client discharged the gun 60 times. Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening in court is what you decide the truth on. He was charged on the 27th.
That's also good for in case they
Still,
did
they
look at
didn't
the
have
media
the
over the weekend.
information, the
I'm sure they
autopsy's
did.
final, anything like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a rush to judgment. Richie McGinnis,
Okay.
I talked about earlier, citizen journalists. Mr. Binger talked about him seeing guns. But remember the cross of Mr. McGinnis. Guns are not legal in Portland, Washington, or DC or New York. They're not allowed on the streets. You can be arrested. There are state laws. And ladies and gentlemen, the gun in this case is no longer an issue. Whether or not it was a dangerous weapon as it applies to the charges is. But my client is no longer charged with minor in possession of a firearm. But he needs his AR-15 and the assault weapon and the fear that goes with that to try and bring home an unjust guilty verdict. Ryan Balch had never met Kyle Rittenhouse before the evening hours of the 25th, has never spoken to him or known him after. And yet the state wants you to believe he made up something about a threat to kill.
Great.
Why? What's in it for him?
I mean, technically
The
a
threat.
self-defense claim.
If I get either of you alone, I will kill you.
Was he
That
saying
is a
what's in it for
threat with a
Binger?
statement and a promise. And lo and behold,
No, what's in it for
the chance
Yeah.
presented
Okay.
itself to Mr. Rosenbaum, and he attempted to execute it. And I don't for a minute believe that he would have done it if it was Mr. Balch, who's much bigger than my client, muscular, well-built, and much more assertive and forceful. Rosenbaum, like any, as he referred to him, I don't even know what he called him, a rag doll, whatever, but the little guy who gets beat up likes to go after the next littlest guy. He saw Kyle alone, and that's what he chose to. Or he could have been mistaken and thinking it was the other person at the ultimate that he went after and had to be held back. They were dressed very similarly, baseball caps, mask, and the only difference was the difference between shorts and a long pants. I can't answer that. Mr. Rosenbaum at this point, I guess, can't either.
Well,
You see
well, yeah.
Mr.
I think you're gonna
Rosenbaum
bring
that
right
up.
around the time in
We'll bring that up
question
later on.
at that location, menacing with his chain.
And get to Grambo confirming the threat
There
as
is
well,
also
as
the-
well as Balch.
Mhm.
I skipped
The looting that was done because
talk about
no
him
one was there.
going on.
I see the quartering in the chat. On a scale of 1 to
Ras-
cheese,
Amber
how
Rasmussen.
Wisconsinian
She was the
is
DA,
this closing argument?
DNA expert. What I say to
some American joke I don't get.
you is DNA is an incredibly useful tool, but DNA is only as useful as what you put into it. And if DNA shows anything, it shows that it's not proof positive in this case. We know in hearing from Dr. Kelly that he most probably touched the gun. It was a contact wound is the way he described it. And we know through the videos, Huber touched the gun with his bare hand, and yet no DNA was found on that gun. So don't let your eyes deceive you. Don't let the physical evidence
The wrong way around.
Yeah.
Reverse it.
be
You got there.
discounted because of what she said. The end of that barrel was not swabbed.
Strike that. Reverse it.
And we know he had to be at the end of the barrel, or it would have had the soot on all of the fingers. Jason Lakowski thought was an interesting witness. He was the
Is
Marine
this a
who
movie review
put the
now?
phrase shout, shove, show, shoot. And I asked him about that.
Glad he repeated
I
that.
don't for a minute disbelieve that that's the Marines' rule. Is there any retreat in there? And he said, no. He looked at me like I was stupid. The reason he looked like that was because they don't retreat. Yet Kyle Rittenhouse did retreat. He tried getting away from Mr. Rosenbaum. He described Joseph Rosenbaum as belligerent with malintent, used the N-word, did the false step thing, did
now
not
he
see
doesn't
Kyle
say
as aggressive. He was there for a shorter period of time than anyone else at Car Source. He also cleared Gage Grosquist's gun after the shooting and made it safe, took the shell out of it. And I ask you to think back to the direct examination of Mr. Lakowski by the state. When they asked him, what did Kyle say to you? His first statement was, I just shot somebody, I need help. That's what he testified to. And then Mr. Binger shows him the statement and gets him to say, well, I told the FBI that. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what he told the FBI. The FBI doesn't let him see that statement, doesn't let him read the statement and say, you've read this to me, it's true in a correct copy. They write down what they think they heard. I ask you to think about what he said. If he didn't shoot somebody, why does he need help? That makes no sense. He said it, he testified to it. That's what happened.
Facts.
The state confronted him and pushes him back to his original statement so he doesn't get in trouble. He put the tourniquet on Gage Grosquist. He testified that he had his AR-15 with him, providing medical services, first aid, just like Kyle Rittenhouse. And I find it so ironic that he was there. Gage Grosquist had said to them, go home, we have our own medics, you stooges. And who ultimately helps him with his tourniquet?
Nice.
Sarah Hughes, her testimony, she reminded Mr. Huber and his girlfriend they needed to be home by curfew.
He's drinking Gatorade. Okay.
Attaboy.
He's an Indian.
Obviously, not advice that was followed. Wish it had been. Carrie Ann Swart, I talked about. She talked about Joseph Rosenbaum being bipolar, being prescribed gabapentin. He had to leave her house that night after walking 4 miles, taking about an hour, and then walking another 4 miles back to downtown where the riots were going on, where he could involve himself fully. Her story contradicts Nathan DeBrune. I just got out when he said, I just got out of jail and I'm not afraid to go back. He'd been off his meds for the week prior. The videos
bipolar.
Joseph Rosenbaum show the state that he was in. No proof that he ever took his meds.
Look at Binger.
Saul Kindiri. He was the first of the Kindiri brothers to testify. Car source. He's in the picture with all the people who protected his property. He's there, and he said he just liked the military garb. Why did he get a picture then with just one of them? How did he wrangle all these people up? Everybody in that picture said that they wanted him there. They gave him permission. Even Dominic Black concurred in that, the state's witness. But as I said earlier, they want these two guys to dirty Kyle up. He's just picking a spot to pick trouble and to be there and cause problems. He was asked to provide security. He did. They deny that they were going to pay any money, yet Nick Smith says they were. And going to pay money to Nick Smith. And ladies and gentlemen, do you get the feeling that they're a little afraid of being sued, as everybody else in this case is? I think so. And when they were up there, I don't remember them saying, oh, you can protect car source 2 or car doctor, but don't go to car 3. They had somebody arranged to protect car 3, car source 3, and the word came in that they had left. Dominic, Balch, Joanne Fielder, all of them say they had permission. Why would they lie about that? How does that protect them? They're not charged with anything. Who's the people who are lying here? Sal and Sam. Next, police officer Widener. He was the ET. He went and recovered some of the 2-3 rounds from car source. I believe he found 3 of them. The other 2 were found 3 days later. He photographed a mask. He didn't find the bag, and we do not concede that there was nothing in that bag. Not for a minute. They have the burden of proof. They have the burden to preserve a crime scene appropriately, get the evidence, and show it to you. Ryan Balch said he smelled ammonia and bleach. They didn't find the fire extinguisher. We know that the fire extinguisher was there. It's in the videos. But that doesn't fit in the state's narrative of Kyle actually going there to put out a fire, which had been started earlier in the Duramax.
Which he used to do, by the way, before that.
Officer Van Wee recovered the last 2 shell casings. Strike that.
One thing is for certain, Richards looks more authentic and sincere than Binger.
Oh, yeah.
Best day.
More relatable.
And the funny thing is, watching Richards, he doesn't look in the slightest bit nervous, which is
Officer
kind of
Van
amazing.
Wee. Officer Moretti. He was the driver of the squad car that Kyle tried to surrender himself to.
Oh, yeah.
He said it was a war zone. It was a war zone those 3 nights. He described it as the city on fire. The police felt as though they were completely surrounded, described the constant gunfire that evening. Mr. Binger wants to slough it off as fireworks this. It really wasn't that bad that night. Ladies and gentlemen, it was hell in this area downtown. There were violent people causing trouble. The state wants us to believe it was okay. The police pushed them back. Now they could leave. Car source was safe. And I can't remember specifically what witness it was, but it stuck out in my mind. Witness said the police pushed him back, let him back, pushed him back, let him back. And a lot of the burning happened late at night, that witness said.
That was a great point.
Gage Groskowitz.
He has healthy disgust for this case and the fact that it was brought.
10 million reasons to change his statement. His attorney is sitting in the courtroom, has been sitting in the courtroom when he testified. If he's just your average complaining witness, why get a lawyer? What do you got to hide? He didn't have
I gotta tell you,
I
I hate
don't
this
like
lie.
that.
He wasn't
did that to
charged.
his witness.
He lies to the police about being armed that night. He said he dropped his gun going down the street. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what's called obstructing. most people, when you lie to the cops, especially in a murder investigation, you get in a little bit of trouble. I've represented some of those people, not Mr. Groskowitz, because he's their star witness, bought, paid for, and protected.
Ooh.
You don't want us to search your phone? Oh, we're going to invoke the never heard before Marcy's Law exception to the search warrant, even though they had a signed search warrant by a judge of Kenosha County. He was also an armed medic. Wants you to believe that he didn't have one in the chamber and he would never shoot somebody. But before he said that, he said key, wallet, phone, gun. Never leaves the home without them. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't carry a concealed weapon. And I don't think I could shoot somebody. But when people carry guns, that's what they're for in the city. This isn't the wild, wild west. He had his gun. Kyle Rittenhouse had run by him. You'll see the picture. Was by him, gone. Did he go to give
I
medical
don't like this
help?
point.
He didn't know that Mr. Rosenbaum was being tended to. No, he decided
He's gonna
to
get dunked on
run
this.
in and
It was
advance
terrible.
on the fray.
He just implied that
member,
Kyle was going to use.
not
his gun
member,
also.
excuse me,
the only
Right.
way to have a gun
affiliated
is to kill
with the
someone.
American
Good.
People's Revolution here in Wisconsin.
That was a
And I might
terrible
have that
step.
one word wrong, but he did it. And
Yeah.
who ultimately put the tourniquet and fixed it on his arm? But Mr. Lakowski, a member of somebody he refers to as the militia and the Stooges. Two different encounters between Gage Groskowitz and my client. The first one, he does not show or give any indication of a weapon. My client does not point a weapon at him, does not shoot at him, does not swipe the weapon towards him. He states he's going to the police. That is uncontradicted. Why doesn't Mr. Groskowitz let him be and go give aid and comfort to his fellow rioter? But instead, he joins the mob, chasing Kyle, arms himself, and runs in the fifth or sixth person into the melee in scene 2. And when his friend was called, his friend said in his Facebook post, his only regret was not emptying the clip into the kid. So we know what his intent was. We know what he wanted to do. Kyle shot first as he was coming in. And he's Mr. Binger
Hashtag Kyle
talks
shot first.
about, he was going to grab the gun.
Kyle Solo.
Ladies and gentlemen, left hand, phone. How's he going to grab a gun with a hand filled with a phone? Right hand, gun. He goes back, loads up, and is advancing. That's when Kyle shoots him. He didn't shoot him when he put his hands up. And if that was it, no
good point.
intent to harm him, all he does, like everybody else, is back up, and nobody else gets shot. But Mr. Groskowitz decides he's going to shoot my client. Unfortunately, my client shot him first. If he had retreated, it's over. And when he's got his hand up like this, as I said earlier, the hands are up. It's not gripping the gun, it's loose. But when he goes in like this, the pistol grip is tight.
Tight.
Void.
Heather Williams, Crime Lab, she testified that the gun works. I have no dispute regarding that. Detective Krieger,
Nice eyes.
he was in the passenger seat of Moretti's car, pepper sprayed, did not get his ID, didn't ask him about the gun, just told him to go home. Kristen Harris, Rundown Live, stated the video. We showed the video to start this, clearly depicting Mr. Rosenbaum standing there at Car Source 2 shortly after the dumpster, standing there with his chain, the shirt tied up over his head. But Mr. Binger says it's impossible for him to have threatened my client. That's garbage, just like his case.
No.
Mr. Binger makes so much out of him one time saying, stay on your property. My client has as much right to go anywhere in downtown Kenosha as anyone else, just as the rioters did. And as he walks out to see if anybody wants medical help, he's not doing anything wrong. He's not doing anything to provoke anybody.
True.
Detective Antaramian, the juxtaposition of him and Howard, as I said, he is the one who talks about what he sees in the video, totally different. As you see, why did Mr. Rosenbaum
Damn it, he's long,
go
isn't it?
behind that car, 2 cars over from the Zeminskis? What was he doing over there? Why was he doing over there? And
He's
why does he
taking a
come
leap,
out
bigot.
as soon as Kyle comes down the road? Because they were going to ambush him. They had set it up, and I'll show you the video.
How much time has it passed? It's a...
How was he going to ambush them if Kyle's
I'm doing
behind and they
this.
don't know he's there? I don't understand that.
Oh.
No clue.
They
It's
knew
a
he was
real
there. He
fault.
walked right. No, he walked right by
James
them, and then they ran
Armstrong.
ahead.
Uh,
They were lighting a fire
The
when
only
Kyle
thing
walked
I
up.
can say about James Armstrong is, okay, that's interesting.
I-
What I'd like to say about his photographs, his knowledge of what he did, and some of the statements that the state has made regarding it is, what he did for those 20 hours is hocus pocus, and he makes an exhibit that is out of focus. And that's
there it is. Focus.
picture
Right.
does not
No.
make sense.
Great.
As I showed
In case you didn't get what it was all about, they had some pictures that were out of focus, and the prosecution just tried to say, "Do you see that pixel over there? That's Rittenhouse doing something bad."
see the crosses across his chest. But no, they need him to have somehow pointed a gun at the Zeminskis. I don't for a minute concede he did, but we know that Mr. Zeminski has been armed all evening. How would pointing a gun at Mr. Zeminski provoke Joseph Rosenbaum, who, according to the state, earlier in the case, they didn't even know each other?
You got to throw in the alternative
But
there.
I think they had to run away from that because there's
Alternative
so many
arguments are bad
pictures
with the jury,
of
though.
them together.
They sure are.
Mr. Armstrong's photograph, testimony. It took 3 days and 20 hours worth of work to come up with that picture. Went from color to black and white, and he admitted he never compared it to the original photograph.
Focus,
Still
focus.
shot. Didn't
He
take
never
into
objected to it.
consideration the fact that the drone was moving. The word peer-reviewed, state has said. Peer-reviewed is an independent verification of the events, the exhibit. So
I don't like this
there was no
either.
testimony to this because it
No,
didn't
it's a
happen.
waste.
That Mr. Armstrong's coworker did 20 hours on the same photograph and came up with the same result. It didn't happen. When you see, and I'll show it to you later, when you see in the video the mirror and the shininess of the
You
mirror,
had the 80s
that's what that
one-liner.
is.
Hocus pocus
And by
out of
going
focus.
around
Drop it.
spending
Yeah, move
20
on.
hours bringing things up, it doesn't account for Kyle's arm. It doesn't account for the heat signature of the gun. None of it. Dr. Kelly.
Well, I think this method, he kind of bound himself to talk about
Personally,
all the witnesses is his
My
problem.
favorite witness. Because physical
Favorite
evidence
witness.
doesn't lie. The soot, extremely close, if not touching. The location of the soot, I had him circle it on the exhibit. On redirect, after I had him do the demonstration and draw on the photograph, the state tried to get him to back up his opinion back it off. He wouldn't, because the physical evidence doesn't lie. It's, as they say in the
There
business,
you go.
an inconvenient truth.
As they say
They
in the
can't change
business.
it. It is what it is.
I've never
That's
called
the
it that ever.
demonstration that happened
Same.
in front of you, the gun and the hand. And if the individual's coming straight at it, the barrel of the gun, it would go through the hand like this. But we know that it was coming from right here, going down, and came out with a very clean exit wound. No soot here at all. So we know that the gun can't be here. We know there's just a little bit of soot on what's commonly referred to as the ring finger right here, and the bulk of it goes this way.
Is he going to call it the baby finger
The
again?
gun touching the gun.
Hey, Emily, call it little finger.
Finger says he was swiping at the gun. Ladies and gentlemen, you didn't need to chase him, didn't need to keep chasing him, didn't need to lunge at him, didn't need to swipe at the gun, i.e. grab the gun.
Nice.
And the shot to the back, as I said,
This is the
4
big one.
shots in 3/4 of a second.
Need to
Good.
call it the
He's
state.
backing up, trying to stay away from him,
Yeah.
shooting, and he shoots until the threat is immobilized. Ladies and gentlemen, other people in this community have shot somebody 7 times, and it's been found to be okay.
Call
My
out to
client
Jacob
did
Blake.
it 4 times in 3/4
Oh.
of a second to
I don't know if that's
protect
the best move.
his life.
Nope,
Yeah.
bad
Mr.
move.
Rosenbaum. I'm sorry,
make that
but that's what
connection.
happened. And this is the prosecutor who said he shot him in the back.
Mm-hmm.
He shot him in the back on a horizontal plane, consistent with lunging. The shot goes in here and ended up in his lower hip across the back. If he's on the ground or down and shot, the bullet goes into the back and ends up in the stomach or on the other side. It cleared back here, ended up in the lower hip. That's because he was on a horizontal plane when Kyle shot him.
Because he was lunging.
It's
You've got to
stippling
finish with
to the
that.
Which
stomach
means he was
from
going
the
for the gun,
first
right?
He did say
Pants
he did
stopped
say
it
he was lunging.
from lower,
but
but it was
do
still
his
on the
job.
upper. The furthest he was away when the first shot was fired was 4 feet and closing. 4 feet. I think it was Mr. Kraus and I who had to fight about how far 4 feet is. It's not that far. It's not that far at all.
Does he have a measuring stick?
4 feet away from the jury.
Gotta say, he needs to
Tape
hammer the
measures.
lie.
So I
There
can
you go.
measure a gun barrel for you today, but that's no longer an issue. I'll show you what 4
I
Don't-
brought it to measure a gun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Going right up to
Gotcha.
the jury.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many meters
Measure
is
it
that?
from
eh?
the jury to him so they can feel it viscerally.
Exactly.
From the edge of the
Viva,
jury
take
box
your filthy metric system and get out.
to my foot right here, 4 feet. Lunge.
No, that's
Nice.
not really lunge.
Nice.
It's Superman.
Think how close that is. Think how fast that distance is closed.
It's
less
literally
than-
0 time.
What
Less than the 7/10 of a second that Kyle spent
was
shooting.
Joseph Rosenbaum
Yeah.
doing? Was he running after my client to give him a key to the city of Kenosha? Was he running after my client to say, hey, thanks for providing security? Use your common sense and your judgment. Look at Mr. Rosenbaum's behavior throughout the night. As I showed you, these are the pictures. One last.
And please, for the love of everything, end with the fact that the shot in the back was an outright lie.
Yep.
Dr. Kelly.
Yeah. Well, it was a disingenuous.
It was intended to mislead the
It
jury.
was misleading. Yep.
Right there. This
Wow.
right here.
Ingenuous.
Nothing
Show us.
on the back part of the hand, no soot. We know what was over the barrel. Remember Mr. Kraus asking the doctor, well, what about that big puff of smoke? That wouldn't have an effect. Soot only goes so far. That was Dr. Kelly's testimony. He doesn't have a dog.
No,
He doesn't have a
Fight.
dog.
No dog.
Looks
Only
body,
cats.
Says what they are, makes a determination, and looks at the evidence. We had an expert, didn't call him because Dr. Kelly told the truth. Couldn't agree more.
Ooh.
Ladies and gentlemen, facts and truth matter. In most trials, the case would have ended with Dr. Kelly. But we wanted to bring you our side of the story.
We want to screw it up.
We had nothing to hide. We were going to put on a defense. I heard Mr. Binger say red herring.
Oh, he's gonna.
The
get
red
there.
herrings in this case are by the state, talking about super bullets, this metal jacket. I've been involved in homicide cases. One time it's a metal jacket. The next time the problem is the person had hollow points. Hollow points are designed to kill. Full metal
Yes,
jackets
thank
are to
you.
go through.
Thank you. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen,
People who've shot.
bullets are bullets. Hate to tell you. At close range and close contact, they wreak havoc on a body
Hat
and
off.
they kill. No dispute.
Except for the reckless discharge.
Keep pointing at the militia. The militia. The militia. He knows Kyle's not a member of the militia. He has no evidence that he is. They went to the websites. They went to TikTok. They went all of that. All they can do is put up a little thing of a 17-year-old kid from his TikTok trying to be famous.
TikTok hat
Kyle
off.
shot Joseph Rosenbaum to stop a threat to his person. And I'm glad he shot him, because if Joseph Rosenbaum had got that gun, I don't for a minute believe he wouldn't have used it against somebody else. He was irrational and crazy. Talked about active shooter.
Finger's not having a good
The
time.
power of those words. My client didn't shoot at anyone until he was chased and cornered.
And beaten.
Nick Smith.
Oh.
Got a phone call from Sam. Asked on the second night of riding to go down there. They used the power washer and buckets to try and put out cars. He did that out of the goodness of his heart. Sam asked him to come and protect the next night and be paid. And he agreed to do it. He asked some of his friends to come with the help.
Like, how annoying are not annoying, how weird are the trials now? You have to talk about TikTok in a courtroom.
He said that when they first saw Sam on the 25th,
Wait.
Sam gave him a hug and thanked him
Okay,
for protecting his property. He was on the roof when it was chemical bomb. He knew that Sam was grateful for their presence, but he also knew that people on the ground needed weapons. He heard Kyle when Kyle came back saying, "I had to shoot." Body armor. I don't know why the Grays Lake Cadet Program gives people body armor. Don't know. My client had it. And if he wanted to be an active shooter, as Mr. Binger wants to portray him, why would he give up his body armor? Nick Smith wanted body armor. He goes, "Here, Nick, use mine. I'm going to be doing medical." Helping other people. You see him do it throughout. He gave Nick his body armor. Why would somebody give up their body armor if they're going to go out looking for trouble, seeking confrontation? Doesn't make sense. Joanne Fielder, she described Joseph Rosenbaum wearing a red shirt with a green earring. She described yellow pants, who I'll get to later.
Oh, yellow pants.
She stated Joseph Rosenbaum yelled he was going to kill us MFers and cut their hearts out. JR's arm goes up, and within seconds, they're tearing up from a gas bomb. She couldn't say for sure that she saw him throw it, but obviously
is just
that's
endless
the circumstantial
Grambos.
evidence in her belief.
Rambo, baby.
She never saw Kyle
85,000
act
Grambos in
inappropriately
the
with
chat.
anybody, point a weapon at anybody. The size of the weapon might change, but it doesn't change what it can do.
Size doesn't matter.
Presence speaks volume.
It's all how
It's a
you use it.
deterrent, and they've been pelted all night long with rocks. She was aware that they had consent to be where they are. Nathan DeBruyne.
Yes.
Photo
This guy's
chat.
so good.
Interesting
Photo
witness.
chat.
So good. I hope they bring up that the prosecution tried to make it
Yes.
change his
Oh,
testimony.
they will.
Yes.
Was out there
They will.
taking photographs on the nights in question. More importantly, the 25th. He filmed the destruction of this community, uptown, downtown. And the ATF and the FBI found out about his videos, his still photography, which I think was incredible. They wanted it. And what did he do? Didn't ask for money. He gave it to him. He sat down with the detective and gave a full interview, showed him the photographs, talked about Mr. Rosenbaum and all the problems he was causing that night, the things he was doing. And that's within less than a month after this. He'd never met Kyle Rittenhouse, didn't know Kyle Rittenhouse, but he had a feeling about what happened that night. And he said if there was trouble, Mr. Rosenbaum was there.
Just saw Binger's
I
eye
don't think
twitching.
any truer words have ever been repeated.
It is.
Did he have a lawyer
Left eye is twitching.
It is.
when he met with Detective Howard? No, he
Yes?
didn't. When did he get a lawyer? Remember?
I don't have
After
a huge.
he met with Mr. Kraus
Nice.
and Mr. Binger.
That
Yeah.
rapid
Mr. Binger,
blinking
the person
is
who's
anger.
made it his personal goal of putting my client's head on his wall.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Well
Nice.
said.
that's what it did.
Gotcha.
And it means
Yeah.
he's been cutting corners.
Ooh.
Nathan DeBruyne said,
Yes, here we go. Here we
after
go, here we
meeting
go.
with Mr. Binger, I was very uncomfortable. He tried to put words in my mouth. And he had to go and hire a lawyer to protect him. First, it was show him the videos and then ask him the questions, trying to put words in his mouth. He didn't want that to happen. He wanted to be able to tell his story of what he knew, what he did. He talked about Zeminski, the photographs of all the conduct that Zeminski had done that night. And I'll show you some of them. The photos have a timestamp on them. And he related to Detective Howard in September of 2020 about Joseph Rosenbaum yelling, I just got out of jail and I'm not afraid to go back. Those are his words that he heard Mr. Rosenbaum. It was not objected to by the state, and there's been no proof that he wasn't in a jail. They want you to believe he was in a hospital. There's no medical records. He was in a hospital. There's no medical records. He was properly medicated. And I submit to you that in this case, the way he was behaving, I don't think he was properly medicated.
Great way of
There's pictures of him with the
Nice.
trailer fires, the chains, starting numerous dumpster fires. I submit that he was with the Zeminskis on many of the occasions, and he was emboldened by Mr. Zeminski because Mr. Zeminski was always brandishing his firearm. We saw Joseph Rosenbaum taking the chains. He chose to come down and riot, and that's what he did. Nathan DeBruyne chronicled that. Why did he chronicle it? Because it's not very interesting if you take a picture of a protester who's just standing there. But Mr. Rosenbaum was involved in all these different things, and I'll show you those pictures.
Who makes some
Lucas
great pictures
Zanin,
also.
Kenosha County resident. Every now and again, he goes down to Texas in the winter. Testified, born and raised. He stated he had empathy for the small businesses of Kenosha, did not want them looted, did not want them burned. Is that somehow to be called into question? Does any of us want those fires started and to come and burn? I don't think so. He authenticated the video that was taken from his car as accurate, showing the south side of car source 3. And you watch that video and you see people destroying someone else's property. During the video, you look at the one wall, there's nothing there. You see somebody spray painting on it, and they've written the word loot on it. You see another individual going in the hood of the car. trying to do something. It's not his car. He's not some roadside mechanic. They're destroying property. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Binger and I will go round and round about it until the cows come home. They were rioters. They weren't demonstrators. Were the demonstrators down by the courthouse earlier in the night? Yes, there were people doing a legitimate demonstration. These people were rioting. And you see in his tape, they're hitting the cars with pipes. You hear the glass breaking. You see the people jumping on it. And the important part of it, and I'll show it to you, is you hear the first bang, which is Mr. Zeminski's shot. 2 seconds later, you hear the next shot, and then you see the exodus of all the people taking off from that. That's why Kyle couldn't run and continue to run from Mr. Rosenbaum, which he was under no legal duty to do whatsoever. Jacob Marshall referred to himself as Gage Grosswitz's best friend.
Damn, so many witnesses.
Brought Mr. Grosswitz's best friend in as a witness because he had posted something on Facebook immediately after this. He testified he couldn't find Gage Grosswitz because he was under an anonymous name at the hospital. Nobody knew who Gage Grosswitz was, who Jacob Marshall was. But he takes it upon himself to post a Facebook message talking about how. Go ahead, next slide, please.
Don't you have a pointer?
I just talked to Gage. To his only regret was not killing the kid and hesitating to pull the gun before emptying the entire mag out.
Interesting that CBS chose not to show this slide.
Hugging each other at the hospital.
They had no problem showing the arm with a hole out of it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This
why
is too graphic, this one.
does somebody post something like that? Because that's what his friend told him. He wanted to get Gage Grosswitz's word out. He didn't repost and say, I lied. He took it down to try and hide it. But unfortunately, the internet has a memory. Next witness was Kyle Rittenhouse.
That has a memory.
I'm done with the Kandari brothers. We did recall them, but I talked about that. Kyle Rittenhouse did not have to take the witness stand to tell his story. It was told through video. He wanted you as the jurors to hear his personal experience of the night of the 25th. He knew Mr. Binger would cross-examine him for hours, and he was willing to get up on that witness stand, take the oath, and tell his story the best way he could. And he did. Could Mr. Binger pick on him and find little things about it? A little bit. Did he damage his credibility? I don't think so. Getting to Mr. Yellow Pants, which we talked about. Mr. Binger talks about, he says with sarcasm. Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the video. But remember that when Yellow Pants said to Kyle, he goes, you held your gun like this.
Nice.
That's low ready. That's not like this. It's down. He never pointed his gun at him. Did he have a gun? Yes. Did he tell him to get off a car? Yeah. But when he said it to Kyle, Kyle said, I did, and walked away, not wanting confrontation. And remember Richie McGinnis's testimony about that. There was the individual with the slingshot. There was the individual with 2 rocks in his hand, and the other individual with the gun. And when Mr. McGinnis walked up to him, he immediately had to put his hand down because they were the one advanced on him, and he bought him off with a White Claw.
I love that detail.
Still funny to me.
My client, when this happened,
Free advertising.
17 years old.
Honestly.
White
His
Claw,
actions
it stops at riot.
are to be judged as a 17-year-old, not by Mr. Binger's standards, but by that of a 17-year-old. And Mr. McGinnis said he didn't appreciate the way people looked at him. and maybe he didn't. And I think the best evidence of that is when Mr. Rosenbaum begins chasing him, you hear on the tape, he yells, friendly, 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 3 times. He thinks that if he just says the magic words, they'll stop. They don't. They could have, Mr. Rosenbaum could have looked at it and said, hey, you're not trying to harm anybody. I'll leave you alone. Is that what happened? No. He said, you ain't going to do shit, mother effer, and began to continue to chase him. Mr. Rosenbaum made a fatal mistake. That day, chasing Kyle Rittenhouse into the corner, he ran as far as he could, and he shot 4 times in 3/4 of a second. Mr. Binger makes so much of Kyle's residence. Antioch, Illinois.
Mr. Binger
I
is
think
the
most people here
prosecution,
know
by the
where
way.
it is. It's not a foreign country. Antioch, Illinois, right across the
It's the
border.
glasses.
He worked in Kenosha. His dad lived in Kenosha. His grandmother lived in Kenosha. He worked in Pleasant Prairie. His
Good.
best friend, Dominic Black,
Tie into the
lived
community.
in downtown Kenosha. They want you to believe that there's some sinister thing about that. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a very mobile world. I'm from the foreign country of Racine, Wisconsin, 13 miles, a little bit further. I'm on the north side. Ladies and gentlemen, when Kenosha burned, people who like Kenosha, they hurt. I remember 34 years ago walking into this courtroom, first time I ever appeared as a lawyer, back in that conference room. And when I saw what happened in Kenosha, it bothered me. Those 3 days. People can protest, but people can't indiscriminately burn property for no reason of innocent people. How does that further anyone's cause? Kyle feels for this community. He worked as a lifeguard. When he came down here, are we to believe that he's working to clean up graffiti, not getting paid because he's here to look for trouble? Is this all some master plan? That's ridiculous. He came down here trying to help, to see the damage, and that's what he did. Next. Dr. John Black, his testimony about the slides,
Was boring.
making times, and I'll go over some of those. But specifically, as I argued earlier, the 0 shot from, I should say it this way, friendly 3 times to the first shot, 10 point.
Got to get through this guy real
No, it's
fast because
Yeah.
he's
There's
boring.
a change in elevation in the video as he's lunging forward. The shot rings out after that. The 0 shot, which is shot 1, then 2 2600ths, the next one 24, 23, for a total of 0.739. He gets up, he comes around the car because all the individuals had left. After hearing the shots, goes to check. And to believe that he could stay there is preposterous. All I said would have happened, scene 2 would have been moved to scene 1. You heard the one individual yell, "Get the F out of here." The Zeminskis are screaming, "He just shot him. He just shot him. Get him, cranium." That's all happening. Mr. Zeminski's walking around with his gun over his head, pointing at Kyle, and I'll show you that in a little bit. In the exhibits that Dr. Black showed the jury, no color was added, no color was subtracted. The videos didn't go from color to black and white. There was no structural problems. He demonstrated his technique regarding changing brightness and contrast right in front of you. And the one video went from a dark mess of nothing, moved the 2 lines. I don't know how to do it, but he did right in front of you, hit it, and all of a sudden it's light and you can see it.
Was it Hocus
The
Pocus,
whole
Richard?
event that evening took 2 minutes
It was
and
interpolated.
55 seconds from the 3 times friendly to the time he surrendered or attempted to surrender at law enforcement. Officer Brittany Bray,
Uh-oh.
Let me
Caution,
go through
chat.
back up to the
Bullet
first
Bay.
one.
I
Total
like he was
time,
using the
2 minutes,
pictures.
55 seconds, according to Dr. Black.
So does the
Next.
chat in just a
Friendly,
second.
friendly, 4 shots,
Remember.
10.8 seconds.
PBS ain't going to show this.
Those are the shot times. Remember the sound he put and synced up with the video? That was the audio graph, the green thing he showed you. You can see when the shot is fired, he matches it up, times them out by the frames per second. You come up with those numbers. And that's because when you show something in slow motion,
Yes.
you can really have the time to think, process, and do all that. You have to remember how fast all this was happening in event number 1. He's running, the bag is thrown, he turns, addresses, keeps running, and makes a decision, a life and death decision, that he has to turn around and address the threat of Mr. Rosenbaum. At that point, Kyle is stopped. Mr. Rosenbaum, like those other people in event number 2, could have put up his hands and just backed up, made a bad decision, shouldn't have done it. No, he goes diving for him, yells the FU, and is going for his gun. Next.
They're mostly low people.
Event 2, I have it beginning when he's hitting the head with the rock.
They
and
just
ending
skip
with the 4th
over
shot,
Officer Bray?
taking 14.9.
Yeah.
I think they
14.9
showed-
seconds.
The chat's going to be real disappointed.
I told you,
They're,
PBS.
Oh,
Oh,
there
there
you
you
go.
go.
Oh, there you go.
Police Officer
There's your
Brittany
climax.
Bray,
Now the
measured
quality
the gun, the pullback,
They kind of did her dirty
Slide
with that frame shot.
4
of the
inches,
live stream.
brought the ruler out because you never the 4 inches,
Chat is
slow
killing
motion
me.
or otherwise.
Yeah.
a lot of the
There
chat
were
would pull
no
it back down 4
unfired
inches.
bullets found at the scene for the AR.
Guys,
There
like the
was
stream for
the
Brittany
unfired
Bray.
bullet by the clip
Do it for
and the
Brittany.
Glock that had been cleared from Jason Lakowski. Drew Hernandez. Mr. Binger, for some reason, didn't like Drew Hernandez. You could hear it in his questioning. Ladies and gentlemen, Drew Hernandez had a point of view. There's no doubt about it. But what was that point of view? He's a
This is being
citizen
biased as
journalist,
hell.
and he's covering the riots. And he didn't think that the mass media was covering the riots correctly. They were just calling everybody demonstrators and not covering the devastation and the destruction that was being done. That's his point of view. It's kind of my point of view too. But does that mean that his video's lying? Does that mean when he says,
Good
I
job.
saw him lunge, that he's lying? He doesn't have a dog in this fight. He tried to get all of his video to the state. The Dropbox wasn't big enough. He sees that the case is going to trial. He reaches out, gets a lawyer, and provides it simultaneously to both of us, and we end up playing it.
Good job rehabilitating.
He describes the Zeminskis, Joseph
Eat an
Rosenbaum
apple.
starting fires in the dumpster, the yelling. He sees Kyle, the yelling of the word, the N-word. He sees Kyle walking around yelling medical, medical, right up until the last time when event number 1 starts. He was standing right at the corner, had a clear view to the first incident. He described him as charging from behind. He saw Joseph Rosenbaum throw the bag. He described hearing a shot from behind Kyle, which we all know is the Zeminski shot, the man who's never been brought before you people. And he saw Joseph Rosenbaum lunge. Ladies and gentlemen, you've sat through
You people.
almost 10 days of testimony. You've heard the openings, most of the closings, and I have yet to hear Mr. Binger explain why Joseph Rosenbaum had the right to chase my client. To me, if I didn't know better, I would think he's a whiny defense lawyer. Everybody's out to
Ooh.
get me. Everybody's lying. I'm the one who's bringing forth the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, the videos show the truth. The videos show the actions of Joseph Rosenbaum. Balch is lying. Fiedler's lying. Lakowski's lying. Richie is lying. Dale DeBrune, he's really lying because he's imputing my character. Nathan DeBrune, excuse me. Hernandez, he's lying because he's a right-wing journalist. All 6 of them are lying. And then I forgot. Detective Howard, he's lying too because he could see through the videos. He could see that Rosenbaum came out behind the car after my client passed.
Nice.
Finger's missing the sarcasm.
Rush to judgment.
Yeah, I might have framed
As
that.
I said earlier, you bet.
Yeah, he could have.
Highly charged atmosphere here in Kenosha.
Still, after
Make
all
no
this,
mistake, you live
you
here,
should
you
claim
know.
Binger's 37 pieces
They
of
had
flair.
to do something. They had to charge the white supremacist. Who is
Good one.
the white supremacist? They've never reassessed their case. They've never looked at it. They've never said, oh, Dr. Kelly, let's talk about this wound on the hand. What? That means he was touching the barrel? Or his hand was over the barrel when it was fired? Well, that means he was pretty close. No, we're not going to reassess. We're going to march forward. We're going to throw it into the hands of 12 people from the city and let them do our work. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a political case.
There you go.
We can take
There you
politics out of it as in Democrat and Republican, but the district attorney's office is marching forward with this case because
Look at Binger.
they need somebody to be responsible. They need somebody to put and say, we did it. He's the person who brought terror to Kenosha. Kyle Rittenhouse is not that individual. The rioters, the demonstrators who turned into rioters, those are the individuals who bring us forth. And I ask you to remember, and I'll show you the videos for the last time from me, the anger in the mob that was going on that night. They were not going to be dissuaded from doing things. They were pushing, firing dumpsters, destroying property. And that was, so you're
Such a
saying
good
Mr.
rep.
Rittenhouse put out a fire. Yes, it was a small fire. Last time I checked, small fires turn into big fires. So, kind of stupid. Focus. I've talked about him. He spent 20 hours
And that's his
working
summary.
a frame in a video and averaging, having my client somehow miraculously go from a right-handed shooter to a left-handed shooter.
I'm glad he's hitting on
Here
this.
on the truck is the arm.
Well, she hit that
Their
work,
whole
right?
case relies on that one photograph that he spent 20 hours. That's how they're going to prove provocation. A word you never heard in the opening statement. It was my client chased him down and shot him in the back. Oops, can't prove that.
He's got to mention
This is the day
touching the
before
firearm makes
car
them
source burning, car source 1 burning the ground. What's in the foreground?
You should say all of these started as small fires.
Be the subject.
Should.
Pictures later on.
He doesn't have a very smooth cadence, though.
There's Kyle.
He's
earlier
not
in
the
day
silver
on the
tongue, no.
25th,
No.
setting up his alibi.
But he does
setting
feel
up
a little
his
more
I'm a
real.
good person story.
more
Because he
authentic.
thinks he's going to go out and
this
kill
is good.
3
It's
people
well said.
that night. Ladies and gentlemen,
Great
that
job.
is
He needs to do better with the
garbage.
sarcasm.
How would he know he's going to be photographed? And what does that do? It just shows he's interested in his community, trying to do good. Picture Mr. Kandiri at Car Source 3. State doesn't want Kyle to go to Car Source 3. According to the state, he has to stay at Car Source 2, 59th and Sheridan. Yet Nick Smith called and asked him to go there because whoever was going to protect that property had left.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. The record does not indicate that Nick Smith made that phone call.
It's argument. Folks, you heard the evidence and use your
It's
collective.
a weak time to object.
That's a really
After
weak
he's been
objection.
beaten for the
I
last
figured he
30
was going to let
minutes.
him go.
At this point, an impotent move is all he's got left.
Testimony was he received a phone call saying they were destroying cars at Car Source 3, and he went down there. First, Kyle asked for a fire extinguisher, asked the other individual to go down there with him. He said, didn't give an answer, and Kyle took off going down there to try and help protect that property.
Binger
This-
could have objected at several
night,
points in this
tear
testimony. He
gas,
chose not to.
Fire.
That was a weird place to do it.
To object to that
Here.
lends legitimacy to all the other
Mr.
points
Rosenbaum.
Richards made where he didn't object.
Were you the one who said
Exactly
that
right.
earlier?
I
About
think he was
being-
trying to break his flow, but it's not working with Richards.
Because he doesn't have a
He
flow.
doesn't have a flow.
Yeah.
There is no flow.
He's got a.
It's all
Like
just
basically
breaking the
reading the
flow of
dictionary.
9 different cups of water.
Louder than expected.
Yeah.
Really loud.
My poor ears.
Sorry, headphone users.
Either the gas station or Drew and Andy.
I'll forgive you.
Police vehicles right down here. They're trying to push it to it. I apologize. They're trying to push the dumpster down to the line of police or to the gas station. It's put out,
What'd you do that for?
and the reaction from Mr. Rosenbaum.
Oh, here we go.
Dumpster
Shoot
number
me.
2.
Shoot me.
You hear the voice? Why you do that?
All right.
Get over this. There's Mr. Rosenbaum arguing. Mr. Zeminski, the smiling puppeteer, standing behind him.
Puppeteer.
Yeah,
Nice.
they didn't know each other. Maybe they didn't, but they sure spent a lot of time together that night.
Cuddling, hugging.
Mr. Zeminski with the yellow
Fiddling.
circle, holding his firearm, yellow pants. Kelly
Yellow
Zeminski with a
pants.
flashlight in her hand. Last time I checked, there wasn't any lighting problems. The flashlight is a weapon to bash heads if you have to.
Well, the perps really learn how to keep their
I don't know
distance
that I
now.
buy that lighting.
Forever.
We need
No.
people with AR-15s, not one person with an AR-15. That's the difference between this, the Ultimate Gas Station,
From
Fracas,
kids also.
and what happened down at Car Source 3. Kyle Rittenhouse was alone. He had been taken away from the herd, and Mr. Rosenbaum and Mr. Zeminski were going to get him. Movement.
A lot of havoc.
Just let it play.
Mr. Rosenbaum and his bag. He's not dissuaded by the people.
A boy in his
He's
bag.
going right at him. He's not afraid of them. He's pushing in and going at them. He's not afraid of a gun. Yelling.
Putting him next to that tall fella is not right.
Shoot me N-word. Shoot me N-word. Mr. Zeminski holding his
Glad he
gun
censored himself this
down
time.
to his side, remembering this is Black Lives Matter rally, and he's there to support their cause. Yeah, right.
You can hear that hard R.
Mr.
I
Huber,
love that picture on
right
the
there,
left. It looks like
holding
he's
him
carrying
back.
his Rosenbaum doll.
actually physically holding back, right in the middle of it. Look at the anger in his face.
Is it
Isn't it
ragdoll?
weird how somebody with the hard R has
Here.
become the celebrity of the? It's like,
Saw video earlier. This individual starting to drum axe on fire. Right here, jumped it.
Titanic.
You see him shoot in the lighter fluid or flammable liquid. You see Jump Kick Man being right involved.
That was water. They were just
This
trying to
is
put out
the
the fire.
calm Tuesday evening
Definitely
that
water.
Mr. Binger is alluding to. Mr. Rosenbaum, this time wearing a blue mask tipping over the porta potty. It was just a little porta potty. The trailer. Trailer's important because it's the way he arms himself with the chain. There's Rosenbaum pushing it. If he's just a regular demonstrator or misunderstood, a little bit upset, what does he need a chain for? What does he need a bag? Why didn't he leave it with Ms. Swart? Here, three things. Blue circle is bag, backed up by the fire. Look at that bag. Does that look like there's nothing in it? Look at this.
I don't know. That's the
What is it?
strongest
That's not a
argument
water
here.
bottle, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought he
can't
was
tell
holding
you
a
what
hula
it
hoop,
is,
actually.
but it's not a water bottle.
I think
Look
it's a
at
fair
this.
point to just point out the
You're changing
disingenuous
each
argument
side.
that the state gave.
He's got it.
Yeah.
So let's also show that when he threw the bag, that it was really an attack on
Totally.
Kyle. That there was something in there.
Jump kick man. Right there, the mask, the white jeans, the black. Look at the boots. Those boots would soon be impacting my client's face.
These boots are made for attacking.
You should have brought one of the
Rundown
boots in.
live.
Said, "Can I hit you in the face with this?" to every
Here.
juror.
Once again, Rosenbaum,
You okay with that?
Minsky at the trailer after it's
Or
been
at least
taken
held
down
up
the
how
street.
big it was to his own face.
Shut up on its side and started on fire. You can still see one of the chains hanging from the tongue of the trailer. Rundown live. The state showed this video. I started my opening statement with it. I was going to show you where Mr. Rosenbaum is. I've already done it. Don't need to waste your time.
I thought you already done it and you don't. Oh, you're showing me Kyle now?
Where do I get to the end? Oh. Here's the picture that we showed at the beginning. Right there, the 125-26. Mr. Rosenbaum, masked with his chain.
I think one thing I
During
would have said before this
rundown live
slideshow
video.
was that Mr. Binger told you to put yourself in
Mr.
Kyle's
Rosenbaum
shoes. So
with the
pay attention
chain.
to that, how you would feel in these particular situations.
Yeah,
I said
think that's
earlier,
good.
look at how Kyle's dressed. Look at the pack on his left side, left hip. The crosses going across the front and the back of his chest. Nowhere in the magic picture is that depicted.
Magic picture.
11:40, he's crossed over that line, asking people if they want medical, runs into Yellow Pants. He walks away from confrontation. And Yellow Pants said, "You pointed your gun at me," and he goes like this, low ready. The individuals who were there with him, slingshot, rocks in the hand, done. Mr. McGinnis. Kyle, after having the brief thing with Yellow Pants, he goes away from them, goes over, looks for Mr. Balch. They might have been close to one another, but they did not find one another. He tries to go
Got me
back,
yawning now.
wants to get back to car source 2.
Needs to wrap this up. He's had a
Yeah.
couple great closing lines.
Finish
He
strong,
didn't-
man.
Didn't stop.
I like finishing with the whole put yourself in his shoes.
And
Yeah,
then
he just needs
play
to
the
get there in a
video-
hurry.
After
He
that,
needs
video
to get
uninterrupted.
goes back and waits. He gets the phone call. He testified about the phone call, either from Nick or Dominic. And what does he do? He gets a fire extinguisher. He hasn't had a fire extinguisher all night, but he gets a fire extinguisher. The circumstantial evidence shows the call came through. He testified the call came through. You know, if it wasn't in his phone, the state would have brought it up. But now they're playing games once again.
Good call. Yeah. I'd keep going back to that as much as
Yes.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
State's lying to you.
Hernandez,
Yeah.
We have nothing to hide. What are they hiding? Why did they ask a witness to change his testimony?
excuse me, starts black and white.
And I wouldn't call him Finger. I would keep calling him
Yeah.
the government.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although Binger is itself kind of pejorative.
During the first part of the trial,
Well, for us.
It is
But
now.
maybe not for the jury. You don't know.
It's one of those names that sounds dismissive.
I'll stop it a few times. And
I mean, I wouldn't go with Mr. Binger.
No, it would be the government wants you to believe this. The government, the government, the government, the
Yeah.
state, the
Yeah.
state, the state.
You hear that?
Exploding
You talking about
Kyle.
a pepper ball exploding in her ass. That's Kelly Zeminski speaking.
Oh my!
What have she and Josh been doing?
Spicy.
It's blurry.
Accurate.
Your eye
Very helpful. Yeah.
here. I'll That's Kyle right there to the right of the garbage can by that splurge of light.
Did he say splurge of light?
Splurge.
Yeah.
Is that splurge? Okay.
Mr. Rosenbaum, as soon as
I can roll
Kyle's
with it.
coming,
I got
It's,
retweeted by Joe Scarborough.
Did you really?
nice.
Awesome. Good for you.
Was there earlier.
I wonder if this is the part where the jury wishes they were also on Twitter because they're bored, like you are.
I mean, he's got to get to the point. Or
I can't find it on Twitter. I got a notification. To be fair,
Point?
Fire extinguisher.
I mean,
but
they
this
had
is
good
this is
points
going way
before.
too long.
They see him
Yeah.
coming. They head down to do their ambush. He's not chasing them. He's not running after them. He's walking down to put out the fire. Let's start over again.
You've already made this point. Move on.
I think what he did is he divided it into witnesses and then tell the narrative story. But there's so much overlap that you get this.
Yeah. I hope he's got a strong finish prepared, because otherwise he's lost
Here,
everybody.
Kyle, yell friendly, friendly, friendly. That is the start of Mr. Rosenbaum chasing Kyle.
That's okay. He still has another 5 hours.
Don't do that. You're making
Now
us
they
lose
come
all
in.
hope.
Right,
He's thrown-
totally pursuing Rosenbaum in that video.
He's thrown
Yeah,
the
you
bag.
retweeted 3 minutes ago, Nick, by Joe Scarborough.
Yeah, I just found it and made fun of him more.
That Thermax got fucking beat.
What's up?
Duramax. The shine on the Duramax. Kyle comes right into this area before he's chased. That's shown on the drone video. It's shown on the FBI video. Skinsky's are standing right here, and that's when the chase is on.
Yo.
You can hear the destruction of the vehicles as he approaches. Gun, gun, gun.
Get him.
And he's off and running. We've seen the videos. Here is the Zanine video, parts of it. As I said, watch for the first shot. Look at all those people standing there. A wall of people destroying cars. The state wants Kyle to run into that wall of people. Listen for the first shot and watch the lackadaisical attitude, and then hear the 4 shots in quick succession and watch what happens.
Somebody found out.
Oh shit. They shooting. Oh shit. Oh my god.
Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. The first shot happens, they barely begin to move.
It's a weird point for me.
Between the first shot,
Yeah.
He's trying to say that he
and
couldn't run
Kyle's
away.
First shot, which is the
I
second
know.
shot you.
He's
here.
in the weeds.
Kyle has turned around. Why is
people
he
are
turned
starting to
around?
notice.
Because that wall of people is there and he has nowhere else to run. The cars, the van,
I think
all
that's
of the
pretty good if
people
they get
destroying
provocation.
property,
You're going to have to try to
soda
beat it
machine.
somehow.
He turns around
Yeah.
and Mr. Rosenbaum keeps coming. Mr. Rosenbaum keeps coming. He lunges, gunshots.
But I would tie all these concepts together a little bit more.
Yeah, a little more explicitly.
There's Mr. Zeminski with his gun down there at his side as his wife yells, "Effing get him, effing get him, he just shot somebody," which they started.
He fucking shot him! Get him there!
Pointing the gun once again, his right hand.
He fucking shot him! He fucking shot him!
Wouldn't hit on the double gas.
Gage Grosskitz's cell phone video. Does Kyle ever point the firearm at Gage Grosskitz when he runs up on him unarmed?
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody?
I'm going to get the police. He's going towards the police. He's continuing on. He's past Gage Grosskitz. He hasn't shot Gage Grosskitz. He hasn't pointed the firearm at Gage Grosskitz. The medic, if he thinks someone shot, why isn't he there? He doesn't know Richie McGinnis is tending to him. None of the people who chase him are at Car Source 3. There is no evidence. Zeminski doesn't chase him. Zeminski doesn't want anything to do with it. His wife doesn't want anything to do with it. But the mob has now formed and is chasing him down Sheridan Road in a northerly direction.
Who shot? Who shot?
Kava says y'all
He
are
turns
bored,
all
but
the way
these are important
around,
details. They are.
looking towards Car Source
It's
3.
just getting long.
Yep.
Could go there. At this point, he hasn't armed himself.
Just because the
Kyle
judge says you have 8 hours doesn't mean you have to use it.
Threat.
It's long
This
because he went through the
active
witnesses and
shooter
is repeating
BS
it.
is something that Mr. Binger is trying to sell you people. Has he shot anybody since
call the
Car
jury
Source
good
3?
people.
No, he hasn't. He's running to try and get to the police. Mr. Binger must live in fairy tale land to think that Kyle could stop, put his gun down, and say, "Hey, everything's good. Leave me alone. I'm going to the police." Unfortunately, that's not how the real world works.
Nice.
This
That rings
is
true.
the real world.
Good point.
People yelling to stop him. Next picture. You saw it in opening statements. Mr. Grosskitz chasing down Kyle Rittenhouse. Kept his gun in the small of his back. He's arming himself right here. Look how far Kyle Rittenhouse is ahead of him. No threat. He's run 2 blocks, almost 3 because it's at the far end of 63rd. He hasn't shot his gun since. If he's an active shooter looking to take as many people as possible, he's laying waste to everybody as he's running. Remember, he's got 30 bullets. He's shot 8 times, 4 in scene 1 and 4 coming up. He's not indiscriminately shooting, pointing, doing it.
These are very solid and important points.
Especially
You're
with that
supposed to be.
reckless.
Yes.
Pointing the gun at anyone?
Or saying
No.
he's provoking anyone
Running
at this point.
down the street, trying to get to those lights where the Bearcats are and law enforcement. He's not running off to the side to hide in the shadows. Blow to the head first, knocking his hat off. What has Kyle Rittenhouse done? Nothing. Trying to get away from the mob. First strike from the mob. He's not an active shooter. He's gone 2 blocks, hasn't shot anybody. Coming in behind with a skateboard at the ready, Anthony Huber. That will be strike number 1. Remember in opening statements when Mr. Binger said, "Oh, something happened to his skateboard." He took a swing at him. Kyle blocked it with his arm in the enhanced photos. What does Mr. Huber do? He runs, grabs the skateboard, and comes in for more. He's on the ground. Most vulnerable position you can be in. What do we have?
Them to put themselves in his
Anthony
position
Huber.
right now.
Here,
Let's see if he brings up the
already
boot.
picking up his skateboard. This guy with the towel wrapped around his head, coming in at Kyle.
Whoa.
Jump kick, man.
Was he screaming jihad?
Guys hit him in the head. Listen. If you go forward just a little bit, see if it works this far. Nope.
It's amazing. Those are cops in the back to the left. Eh? I mean, that's how close he was.
Yeah, he's 2 blocks away, Tom.
You saw
He's almost there.
this individual over here who's now obstructed come in at Kyle. Kyle points his firearm at him. He backs up. Kyle does not shoot. Jump kick man leading with this foot. This foot is still on the ground. What direction is Kyle pointing right now? Watch what happens after jump kick man kicks him in the face.
Bring the jury in.
Turned around. He's looking in that direction. Anthony Huber coming in with the skateboard.
Just play it full speed
Watch
and
what
show him
Anthony
how
Huber does
fast
with
it
the
was.
skateboard.
Yeah.
Blow to the head. Coming in. Kyle's trying to get up. Anthony Huber's hand goes onto the gun. This is the fast one. The gun is pulled away from Kyle. Anthony Huber fires. When Anthony Huber fires, Gage Grosskowitz flinches.
Anthony Huber
Covers
fires?
up.
I think you may have
Natural,
mixed that up.
uncontrollable
He's done that a
reaction.
few times.
Back.
I hope he lets this go through at full speed at some point in this closing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like end with it.
There he goes. He had backed it up. Oh no, that's continuing on.
Good. No,
Yeah.
just play it.
Now here's the slow motion. He's been hit in the
Why?
head.
Why?
Off.
He didn't make these decisions in slow motion.
And the
Yeah,
problem
slow-
is that this is cutting out all the audio where you hear people shouting, "Get him, kill him!" You know.
Yeah, slow motion is not typically great for a defendant.
Anthony Huber winds up
It's not
with
what
the
he
full
needed.
force of
And
his
if he
body.
shows it in regular speed, that's
Back
okay.
here, he swings his skateboard at Kyle.
That's really critical.
Kyle
He shows that
senses it coming. He turns around and looks, blocks it with his arm. Doesn't turn around
His
and
Spidey
shoot
sense.
Anthony Huber as he's being attacked with what is a deadly weapon. A skateboard can cause death or great bodily harm, ladies and gentlemen.
Good.
He doesn't
I've
do it. He
prosecuted
continues to run a couple of
ADWs
steps
to it skateboard.
before the blow to the head, and this is knocked into the ground.
More than a few, actually.
He immediately changes direction, goes running for the skateboard. Want to get through this one?
We want to get through it too.
Okay. Now this is slow motion. Just as he's on the ground, he's set up, trying to get up. The individual to Kyle's left is the one who runs in. Kyle points the firearm. He backs off. He is not shot at.
Did he just make a
Backs up.
sound?
Oh, I thought that was one of y'all.
Now addressing the
That wasn't
second
him.
nearest threat.
Funny.
Does not shoot. That individual right there in that picture is stopping.
Yep.
Is the best thing.
That's exactly what he did. That dude was like, I don't want to get any part of that. I'm
Junket
back
man
away. We're going away.
launches, contact, fire, turned around. In comes Anthony Huber.
The skateboard.
Blow to the head and neck. Now, I'm going to start it. You'll see Anthony Huber pull on his gun. You'll see the butt of the gun separate from Kyle's body going in that direction, away from him.
Yeah, I hope he ends with, now let's put it all together and just play it really quickly through.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope he
Now
does
let's
that.
see how fast this all happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
All
because
his
this is how
correct
fast
decisions.
Rittenhouse
How
had to
quickly he
make
made all these
calls.
correct decisions.
Yeah.
Shot. Mr. Huber goes down. Grossquits.
Grossquits goes.
Punches, freezes, stops.
Points the
Holds
gun
up a
back
cartoon
down.
yikes sign.
Hands up.
Zoink.
No pull.
Call him a war criminal.
And then he decides to go back in.
Mr.
Yeah,
Grossquits is
You can see
standing like
Grossquits
this.
decide to go back
And all
in.
of a sudden, you see him kick his foot back and launch forward. He
That's what he
loads
figures he's
his
going to be a
back
hero.
foot going forward at Kyle with a loaded Glock handgun. Kyle sees it coming.
It was actually
It's within
illegal
a
to
couple
have.
of feet. He fires.
Yeah, see, that's where Kyle said he was pointing the gun at him at his feet, which was the
Yeah,
only.
Kyle shouldn't have admitted to that, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
I
Kyle
think
was
it's-
trying to sit up.
It wants nothing to do
Well,
with
in
Kyle.
Kyle's defense, his client,
Like
his
everybody
attorney let him
else.
get badgered into it.
Back away, and you don't get shot. Mr. Grossquits decides he's going to take him out, and his only regret, as stated in the Facebook post, he didn't fire first and empty his clip into the kid.
Why don't you say that Kyle didn't fire until he turned his gun on him?
He's hit in the arm. He's shot at once. He's backing up. That's the last shot.
Guy with the hands up right there
Went through the
puts
quickness
the gun down.
of shots
Yeah.
and the rock in the head to that fourth shot. He gets up. You still see this individual
There you go.
Right there, hands up.
armed with a board or a 2x4 or a fence post. Doesn't shoot at him. This person he doesn't perceive as a danger. His hands are up. Doesn't shoot at him. Now as he wheels around, watch what this individual does. That was the end of it. Kyle turns around. He turns. That individual steps away from him. No more shots.
Make the full speed.
Doesn't shoot randomly. Shots from behind him. Continues on his way, trying to turn himself into the police.
I do feel bad for the guy behind Grosskreutz when he gets his arm vaporized because he had to get a lung full of bicep at that point.
Gross.
Now
Yeah,
play
it's
the
pretty nasty.
entire thing is right. Reading the chat,
Thank you.
play it beginning to end,
Yelling to
and then
shoot
let.
him. He doesn't
Real
stop
speed.
because it's not safe. Goes with his
He puts his
hands
Yeah,
up.
hands
to
I
law
would have
enforcement.
replayed it at this point right here. The whole way through.
We know what happens after this. This doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
I would replay the whole thing from the first shot to the last shot till when he's walking up.
He should have been doing it before this part.
Yes,
yeah,
he
but
should have.
this part's irrelevant to
on.
the self-defense claim.
Hands
Right.
up. You hear the story about the pepper spray.
Take us
Oh, he's
back
not
to the
gonna do it.
beginning.
Ladies and
Real
gentlemen,
speed.
Oh
that's
my
the case.
god.
Oh,
No.
There was no threatening behavior that started this.
Oh.
Mr. Rosenbaum
Come on, do a
was hell bent
surprise.
on causing trouble that night.
He should have said no
He
threatening.
did what he
behavior
did,
by Kyle.
and he started this. There are tragic parts of it,
Tragical.
but Kyle Rittenhouse's behavior was protected under the law of the state of you decide on count one. If you decide that his conduct was privileged under the use of self-defense, you don't go on to the lesser included. If it was privileged under self-defense, that
There are no lesser included on
affects
count one.
count two.
How to
Both of the
use
things
the
that
jury
happened
instructions is
in
critical.
scene one, as I read earlier, page 9 of the jury instructions. If his conduct was privileged as to Rosenbaum, it's privileged as to Mr. McGinnis. On to the next ones. At scene 2, ladies and gentlemen, there is no evidence whatsoever that he was an active shooter other than Mr. Binger calling him that. And there's no evidence that any of those other individuals who attacked him in the mob that night
Not other than even
were
though.
attacking an active shooter. He wasn't shooting. And if
Well,
they
and
want to
it doesn't
be
matter what their state of mind
the
is. They're not trying to
heroes,
prove
and
self-defense.
they want to
Yeah.
beat somebody and do what they're going to do to them, they better be right. And they weren't. Kyle Rittenhouse shot Mr. Rosenbaum because he was attacking Kyle. Every person who was shot was attacking Kyle. One with a skateboard, one with his hands, one with his feet, one with a gun. Hands and feet can cause great bodily harm. Sure, the state's going to get up and say, well, he didn't have great bodily harm, so it doesn't matter. That's not the standard. The standard is could cause great bodily harm. My client does not have to take a beating from the hands of this mob or the hands of Mr. Rosenbaum. And Mr. Rosenbaum might be little, but he was a pretty muscular guy. And some 30-some-year-old guy can take a 17-year-old kid 9 times till Tuesday. Ladies and gentlemen,
And Joe Rosenbaum happily
it's a
would have.
tough choice, but the evidence only leads to one conclusion. That is that Kyle Rittenhouse's conduct on August 25th was privileged based upon the actions of Mr. Rosenbaum and others. There are no winners in this case, but putting Kyle Rittenhouse down for something he was privileged to do will serve no legitimate purpose. I ask you to do this, do justice here under the law of the state of Wisconsin. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Richards.
So overall,
Let's take
it was
about
very good.
10
Break
minutes
and then
and
do the
please
rebuttal.
don't talk about the case. Read, watch, or listen to any account.
Well, good timing. I can switch my battery.
Yeah.
Everyone who's
I-
like, why did you already tell the chat why the state gets a rebuttal? Because they bear the burden of proof. Because that's why the state gets to go next, because they
Yep.
bear the burden of
But
proof.
they're
They
supposed
get-
to have like a half
he gets
hour,
to
and
go.
according to Judge
It's gonna be like a
Schroeder, he was
2-hour
5.5 hours
2-hour
long.
rebuttal.
It'll just be
Well, it's
line by
gonna be-
line.
It's going to be long. I want to say real quick before I step away to switch out my camera battery that I was not a Richards believer going into this, but I think he put on a very competent closing argument. I think he did really well. It was a little long, but so it's a big, complicated case. I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, there's
Overall,
a
I would
couple
agree.
places we can nitpick, but
It's easy
Oh,
to
so
sit
the-
here and do that after not being in trial for 10 days.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
The chat is saying, he used the word privilege too much. But if that's mirroring the jury instructions, you have to tell the jury how to parse those jury instructions in the language they're going to see. And I didn't see it earlier. Did the judge pre-instruct the jury and give them the instructions before argument? Or is he
Yep.
going to read them
Yes.
those after arguments?
No, he gave jury
Yeah, he already
instructions
read them.
in
Yeah.
the morning.
I very much prefer that. In California, they let the attorneys choose whether the judge gives the jury the instructions before closing or after. I always preferred it before. It's much more powerful when the lawyers repeat the words. So that's why he's using the language from the jury instruction so that they know, because jurors do get confused back in the jury room and deliberation with those instructions. They can be really challenging.
I think there
So.
seems a good chance of that with these instructions.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through, and it's one of the things when you see questions happen from the jury that they'll bring the attorneys in, the defendant in, bring the jury out, and try to answer their questions in open court to go through those instructions. So
And these instructions are 37 pages long.
Yeah,
So
it's a
there's
lot.
There's a lot for them to get confused about and try to parse out there. I agree with what Nick said.
So if you want to watch further, because I have to go to sleep, because tomorrow I'm working, motherfuckers, you have the stream that I'm streaming in the description. It's but if not, let me just show you the channel. It's Rekieta Law. They actually know the law and stuff like that. As you saw, they all have law things in their names, and usually they have they talk important cases and cases. So give them a visit if you want. I do believe that I hope that it would have been less longer than it went. But I can't resist all night and go tomorrow and do that work, you know. Because I don't have time like them too. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a working man, wanting to see what's going on. But I didn't have the luck to reach the end. Maybe tomorrow morning when I wake up, the statements will be there. But from what I know, it should have been today. Oh yeah, it should be today the answer, if it's guilty or not guilty and what happens until the jury deliberates. So if you have time and energy, if you don't work tomorrow, and if you're pretty cool, pretty privileged, you should go and give them some love, because damn it, they do need it. Because today, also let me just close this because I keep hearing them. Because today people didn't quite have the opportunity to stream this, as many channels that tried to live stream this got blocked by YouTube for reasons. You know, there's always some reasons. Let me just see one clip. We're gonna see it together. I wanna just prepare it. I wanna hear Binger. Oh, come on, stop. Okay, let me just show you one of Binger's arguments. Huh? So remember last year when the city was burning? The city was burning because a crowd full of heroes passed through. Damn, they really do make the memes look amazing. Well, where is it? Right. Come on. Oh, let me just pull it up. I have to put it in. Ad blocker is just destroying My flow. Oh. Maybe this. This is the riots. These are the riots last year, based on Binger's description. But yeah, I'm getting too long on this, and I should have sleep. I have 10 more minutes to close my eyes, so 14 more minutes to close my eyes before I sleep too much. I thank you for passing by. I hope you got a little view of what's going on, and if you want to go further, I already told you you can go to Rekieta Law, and they talk more about it more in detail. I wish you have a good night, and I wrote 300 words today, so I'm good for tonight. See you soon, everyone. See you soon. Bye.